contest master. Good morning, my fellow Toastmasters and guests. I have a big confession to make. You see, I have become obsessed with winning the International Speech Contest. It's awful. But ever since I've been a Toastmaster, I've had tunnel vision about winning this contest. That's all I could think about. So it's become my own personal great white whale. You see, I'm referring to the classic American novel by Herman Melville, Moby Dick. See, Moby Dick was a story about Captain Ahab, who was obsessed, possessed, and finally tormented with chasing and killing the great white whale, Moby Dick. He took his crew, at great peril to their lives, all around the North Atlantic Ocean, hunting and searching for that whale. He eventually, because of his obsession, lost touch with reality. He thought that the whale was talking to him. He felt like the whale was taunting him. And why did he have this obsession? To get the whale oil to provide fuel for the streetlights in the city of Boston. Amazing. A leader who would put his men's lives at stake for fuel oil? Well, let me tell you about my sad story of obsession. The first year, I wrote an emotional and gut-wrenching story about a big challenge that my family and my son faced. In fact, my wife didn't want me to tell the story. She said it was too personal. But my obsession to win trumped her. I was sure it was a winner. That night, a young man told a story about the woman that raised him, his grandmother, and her garden, lessons from her garden. He even brought her into the room, and at the end of the speech, she handed out her prize tomatoes. Oh, the grandmother story! Why did I think of that? Aha, I said. The strategy must be stories about senior citizens. So the second year, I wrote a story warm and uplifting about my dad. It was called The Man with 9 Lives, how despite all his many medical problems, he still continued to teach people how to read, illiterate, how to read. Sounds like a real winner, you say, right? Wrong. The guy that won that night told a story about his cat, Mr. Sneakers. The cat that would go to the front door and act like it wanted to go outside. And then when he opened the door, the cat wouldn't go out. The guy even faked throwing up a fur ball. Cat vomit. Why didn't I think of cat vomit? So my obsession was growing in the third year. I wrote a great story about high school football, a sure touchdown winner. But my obsession, it got me to lose focus. And like the game that went overtime, I went overtime. 7 seconds. So last year, I took to spying. Dun, 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 dun. I went out and bought one of those high-tech spying listening devices, and I rode around my neighborhood with it out the window, eavesdropping on my neighbors' conversations. And I heard this great story about the kid next door. Only to lose to a guy who told this warm and inspiring story about this teenage girl who started this national trend of hope and good. No matter how funny the 4-year-old boy story is, it never beats the do-gooding teenager girl story. So what are your obsessions? Are you obsessed with getting the perfect job only to underperform with your current employer? Are you chasing the dollar, doing anything to raise your bank account? Are you obsessed with your looks, buying the latest products, always to look more youthful? Are you obsessed with achievement, ignoring and isolating your family at home? So what's the impact of our obsessions? Well, Captain Ahab was so obsessed, but he in fact achieved and conquered his obsession. He successfully harpooned Moby Dick. But the whale turned around and came back and smashed into the boat, killing Captain Ahab and all but one of the men on the crew. There was only one lone survivor, Ishmael. And as Ishmael was floating in the ocean, looking at the destruction caused by Ahab's obsession, he said, "Only I alone have survived to tell you." So what is Ishmael telling us? In fact, Ishmael didn't care about whaling. He was a school teacher. He wanted to teach his shipmates how to read. He was just there for a big adventure. For him, it was about the journey and not the destination. We've got to heed Ishmael's warning. now I realize that I don't need to win the international speech contest. The win is in finding the story, crafting the words, practicing my delivery. That's where the joy is. The win is in having someone listen to your speech and having their life impacted by it. Without Toastmasters, I never would have been able to publicly honor my father. Without Toastmasters, I never would have realized the importance of faith in making the decisions faced by my family and my son. Without Toastmasters, I never would have been able to be up here and enjoying this experience trying to win the international speech contest. So I realize now that it wasn't about winning. What I thought was 4 years of failures in my speeches were actually victories in disguise. You see, the win for us, our win, is writing a speech that tells us something about our past that we had forgotten. Our victory as Toastmasters is writing the speech that takes us along the climb to self-awareness. I started with Melville's speech from 1851. I'm going to close with some lines from a song by Miley Cyrus from 2009. That's right, I'm going to take you home with Hannah Montana. There's always going to be another mountain. You're always going to want to move it. It's always going to be an uphill battle. But sometimes you've just got to lose. It ain't about how fast you get there. It ain't about what's waiting on the other side. It's all about the climb. Ladies and gentlemen, please don't let your obsessions sink your ship. Just keep climbing. Mr. Contest.